Welcome to Small Things Brought Together. My name is Robin Love. Small Things Brought Together is an ongoing series of conversations with artists about their creative process. These are long format conversations where we give ourselves time to investigate ideas deeply, circle back, say it incorrectly the first time and come back again. We have a lot of room, time, and space to really investigate what is this mysterious thing, the creative process. So we're in season 4, and I am delighted that it brings us to Tangiene Martin O'Hara. So welcome to Small Things Brought Together. I'm very excited to be talking with you today. Tangiene is an artist who lives in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. Recently relocated from Corner Brook. So for people who don't know, Newfoundland is an island off of the east coast of Canada. It's a big island, in fact. And I live on the west coast, which is easily a good 8 or 9 hours drive to the east coast. And St. John's is right there on the edge of the east coast, looking over towards England. Yeah, I'm delighted that you're here. Tangiene is I feel like you use many different media, but primarily two-dimensional, so painting, drawing, recently zine making. Yeah, and you born and raised in Edmonton, Alberta, school in Vancouver, art school in Vancouver, and then made your way somehow, some way to first Corner Brook and then St. John's. So welcome, Tangiene.
Thanks,
Welcome.
Thank you.
So is there anything else you would like people to know before we dig in about your background or
No, I think I'm pretty basic painting, drawing. I did some zine making recently and a little while ago, but that's it. Yeah, like pretty, I don't know, traditional, two-dimensional
yeah.
art making.
Yeah, so I guess what really grabs me about your work is you work, well, in the past, I would say in the sort of much further back past, you have done abstract work, but more recently it's been in a more realist vein. And it's not, I was really trying to think of like, what are the correct words to talk about your style? Because in a way, you're clearly have amazing skills in terms of like depicting things realistically. And that is like not even the most interesting thing about it. Really, to me, it's like gets to the heart of like what is actually real. You know, it's not about a superficial appearance. And I think your work, even though you can see, oh, it's a person or an animal or a tree or whatever, there's something like you're catching something that's actually like what is really real about what you're depicting. Yeah. How do you feel about that?
That's a lot of people mention to me. I don't even know how to say it, and I find it really actually difficult to talk about my work or write about my work because when I say like I do portraits, for example, what does that mean? Like, what am I getting? And again, for anybody who hasn't seen my work, especially starting from 2017 until 2021, I was using just people's social media posts. It was really my connections, my way to share with people I love. Just see their media posts. People post a lot of happy pictures online, their families, their friends, their pets, that kind of thing. And so people have said that to me, that not like I can't always get it realistic. Sometimes I miss something. And even if I've gotten, I drew somebody's child in 2017. That was like my first child drawing. And even though it looked kind of like her daughter, there was something missing. And I think that I usually capture that thing that I was missing with her. And I don't know what it is, just some spark or just some essence of a person, something that's some spirit, some embodiment of like the energy that they have. That's, I think, what I can get, like that energy.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it, really. And I would even say, when I was thinking back, like what was the first thing that caught my eye? It was a drawing you did, I'm going to guess then, from a photograph that I guess you took when you were in a car driving through Gross Morn.
Yeah, yeah.
So you sort of see the dashboard is clearly taken out of from a car to the landscape, but like through that particular view that we have. And I just remember being like, whoa, okay, there's something, this isn't, it's like more than the sum of its parts. Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually probably the first or second time I did multiple perspectives as well in storytelling, like instead of just one person's photograph or my photograph. I used multiple, I was in the car, I was in Gross Morn, and I'm looking at, the typical beautiful tablelands and everything. So just like picture, things that I actually can't see as a driver or don't see in the same time. Somebody as a passenger can maybe see partly. So I took it from different angles. That was my first time kind of piecing together photos. That makes sense? Like collaging photos into one normal looking picture that should be normal, but it doesn't really wouldn't make sense. I'm not sure which perspective you'd be in to see all of those images, the side mirror, the side mirrors, the rear view mirror, the front board.
Yeah, I don't think I really even noticed that piece of it. It was so taken with that energetic quality that you were talking about, of catching something and on that level, that energetic level. And which, maybe I'm like revealing my own bias, but for me, sometimes when people work realistically, there's like so much care and concern about matching the realism of it, the look of it, that some of that energetic quality gets lost in service of being realistic. Yeah.
And I'm really sorry, Robin. I'm starting to cough. Can I just grab a glass of water?
Absolutely.
I'll be right back. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to share my screen so we can really look. Seems like a good time. Make it a little less abstract about what are we actually talking about here. Okay. Yeah. So
yeah.
Here. Oops. What am I doing here? Yeah.
I like the comments too. Thanks, everybody. Yeah. And I don't know if it was like, I actually don't remember, and I've got a terrible memory for names. Was it David Hockney? We did in foundation, first year foundation of arts. We had I think it was our sculpture teacher actually told us to take a bunch of photos. This is when we, everybody had film cameras back in 1970. No, we, they had us do scenes and make collages with multiple photos. And I think somehow, like, I really liked, how you like certain things when you do it in art school and some things you hate so much.
Right.
I know it wasn't brilliant what I did. It was all based on another artist's, work. But I think I must have kept that in mind somehow to like make these collaged photos and turn it. This is again, the second piece I did with that kind of using multiple photos to like make one piece of artwork.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, there's a way that can look very much like, oh, look, she used multiple photos. But yeah. I feel like you've somehow managed to not have that happen. And yeah, some of these, I guess, are more like some of the details. Maybe I'll just bring that up.
Yeah. Yeah, some of them were like works in progress, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Gen X. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Gen X house, Jenny X house.
Oh, I don't know.
Tablelands, and then on the right there's like a, I can't remember which part, Woody Point, no, Norris Point. There's like a children's playground. Everything was closed. This was COVID. This drawing is called April 2020, I think, or May 2020. I don't remember anymore.
It did say, I saw somewhere April 2020. Yeah.
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 Oh, well, since we're just here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually maybe well, I do want to talk about a couple specific projects, if you don't mind. Maybe
No,
I'll
not at all.
let's back up here. So one is this project that you got some Canada Council funding for around monsters. And maybe I'll even stop the share for right now. So you got to do a project. Can you just speak a little bit about what that project is?
Sure. For years and years, I was thinking about doing monsters. Even in Emily Carr in Vancouver, that's the university I attended, I would tell people I wanted to do a series about monsters. And people are like, go for it. And I just never, 15 years later. And I was trying to think what my monsters are. I'm sure a lot of kids are like this. I was scared of like so many things. And nowadays, like I've been told I've got anxiety, but I think everybody does. So I don't know if I specifically do. When I was a kid, I was terrified, of monsters in the dark and any scary stories. I was scared of the Sesame Street vampire, Dracula guy, or Count the Count.
Yeah, the Count, right?
I think I got scared of Cookie Monster one day. Anyway, so yes, monsters. I've always thought I should do a series on monsters. Plus, people love just drawings and paintings of anything that Goya has done, or anything kind of spooky and scary. People love that kind of stuff. But for me, my biggest fears, I realized, were when I was walking in nature, outside in nature, in the daytime or the nighttime, especially at nighttime, like in the middle of, I was in Ontario, I was living in Toronto, and I was in somebody's, like a couple hours away from Toronto, in the middle of the country. It was pitch black and I couldn't see a thing. And I had young eyes at the time, so I should have been able to see something. And I was scared that like a coyote or something would suddenly just get me. It was the strangest feeling. I never had that feeling in the city because there was lights and stuff. I think one time or twice in my life when I was in Toronto, I was scared of maybe a stranger following me, but it was a completely different type of fear, like out of my control. In Toronto, I felt like I could scream, I could call the police, I could fight, I could, do something. But when it was in the nature, I was like, I can't do a thing. There's like, I'm helpless. There's nobody around. So my Canada Council project proposal was me just saying, hey, I'm going to take some more hikes. I'm going to hike around. I'm going to photograph. I'm going to write a diary. Anytime I'm scared, I'm going to write like what happened. What was it, a sound? Was it a feeling? Like a vibe. So yeah, they accepted my proposal. I was very, very fortunate. I got some support from the Corner Brook art community too, backing me up on that. So it was really, really good. And in the process, it just, like, I feel like I'm a ridiculous person. Like for anybody who doesn't know Corner Brook Stream Trail, it's just like a small little trail in the center. I don't know what you say, the heart of the town, center of the town.
Yeah, it goes right through it. Yeah.
It's not spooky. But I would get scared, and they're like, on the walk home, it's beautiful, it's autumn, there's golden and red leaves. And I saw a man about 100 feet away from me, and I got really scared. And it wasn't an animal. It wasn't like a moose. Like, I got scared. I've been on a trail, I see moose droppings, I got scared. I hear a twig in the middle of the forest, I get scared. Like, this is what I'm writing down. It's just so silly. But then once I was on the Corner Brook Stream Trail, broad daylight, nothing scary is happening. I just saw a man, and I got really scared. And then he walked by and he was probably 85 years old and 5 feet tall and had suspenders, and he had like a little metal lunchbox or briefcase, something like that. I was taking photos like, ah. And then I think that's almost when I think I was kind of in denial before, or delusional, but I realized it was mostly a fear of men. Like, I mean, in BC, I lived in Vancouver for 15 years, and I'm from Alberta, and we visit the Rockies a lot. There's fear of grizzly bears and wild animals and mountain lions and cougars, all that kind of stuff. But I was like, why am I so scared in Corner Brook? What's going on with me? So that's when I decided to tap into like my fear of men and social, like, where am I getting this from? Social messaging, media messaging, my own internal baggage and fears about being attacked by a man or a wild animal, but mostly men.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all that. I have so many
Yeah, sorry, that was a lot.
no, it's so good. It's so fascinating. I mean, well, first, just to back up to where you started, in terms of like that experience of being outside in like true darkness without, some kind of ambient light from humans interfering. I also can remember the first time I had that experience, because it's profound. I think as a human, it's like connecting us to our animal nature. Suddenly I understood like not all that but like I really got like why people had to make up stories about, death and night and the stars, and because it's so profound, that darkness, and we don't really get a chance to experience it very often. Yeah.
No, I mean, I grew up in a city. I grew up in Edmonton. It wasn't a big city, but there might have been maybe 500,000 people. That's still a city. You got lights. You could always drive out to sit on your car and you could look at the stars. But it was different. Or Northern Lights. Oh my goodness, I do miss the Northern Lights. But same thing. It's lit. There's something about the light that really just makes me feel safe. Well, I don't know. Or something safer.
Yeah, and I think it connects to something very deep and primal in us as people and like animals. Yeah. And then, around like fear, and what is fear, and what are we actually afraid of, in terms of like what I have found is, in moments when there's actually something to be fearful of, it's actually on some level completely fine, in as much as like I can address the fear, or address what's being, causing the fear. But it's really almost like the fear of the fear is the part that feels very out of control and has a million stories. And
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And also being someone who, I lived in New York City for a long, long time. So walking out into the woods, even behind my house, which has a fair bit of skidoo or quad traffic on the regular. So it's not really being alone. But what I realized was, there are bears back there. There are moose back there. And what did I fear the most? Men. I'm not actually that well. I don't really want to meet a moose, but I kind of figure like I'll deal with it. But like, and the truth of the matter is, the men are fine, actually. And why don't I hike more? Oh, that's why.
I know, and sorry for diverting a little bit, but same thing, like a lot of the things that maybe a man has done, like, or said, it's always been, not always, sometimes it's more subtle. Like a mutual friend of ours, we were talking about this, and there was a man in my neighborhood. I really liked him. He was real sweet. He was an older gentleman. He walked two little dogs. I've got a little dog. He gave me some advice because my dog had diarrhea. And we'd see each other in the neighborhood and he'd be lovely. I bumped into him one time and he was around some male friends or some men. I don't know if they were his friends.
Mhm.
All of a sudden he treated me different, like making slightly sexual hinting comments and giving me looks up and down in front of his buddies. And I was like, this is weird. So it's not like I didn't like him after that. I didn't want to talk to him after that, but he didn't do anything scary. I wasn't afraid of him attacking me, but it's almost like those things almost build up into like, then it becomes like these imaginary fears. When that happens, sometimes it happens, especially it could happen to any human, man or woman or non-binary. But it feels like if that happens to you, and especially when you're younger, I think it happens quite a bit when you're a young person.
Yeah.
People are more predatory, and then it just builds up in you, and then you start having this like imagined fears, real imagined. I'm not sure how to talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we come by it honestly. And yeah, and what you're describing to me sounds like you went from thinking that you were just kind of interacting with him like a person to person, and then suddenly now you're like an object, and he's treating you like an object rather than like just another person with a dog, you know?
Yeah.
You thought it was a relationship, but it turned out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe this is a good segue into the project you did at Grenfell. So, in many ways, you're talking about a topic that, I mean, I want to talk about your work, but I'll just say this. It's a topic that I have thought a lot about in my own work, and kind of the historical aspects of patriarchy, of misogyny, and how we as people in female forms basically have it in our bones to feel that fear for good reason, because there's thousands of years of violence that we embody simply by being born in this form. Yeah, that's my working theory. Agree or disagree? Fine. So, but maybe this brings us to, you can tell me when to stop, your project that you did at Grenfell. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
It was kind of, I don't know if you'd say the end result. It was a combination of a number of works that I had done for the Canada Council project, and I was supported by the Grenfell Art Gallery. I did a residency with them so I got the Canada Council grant. Basically, I think I started like June 2021, ended September 2022, with a year of funding for me to explore everything. It took on many forms, but so the end results, in a sense, or what I showed at Grenfell, was I don't really know how to say it, but so some discoveries I made of things maybe that trigger me when I see them in the media, like cartoons and sitcoms that have sexual violence jokes or rape jokes, and it's just funny and common, and that might be something that disturbs me. You know what I mean? Like I'm just trying to think of things that maybe when I'm on my walks or my hikes or out in nature, what are things that I've seen in my day-to-day that maybe are triggering me. I don't even realize at the time. Like I know when I see a cartoon that shows rape as being hilarious, I know I don't like it and I don't want to watch it, but I'm not there's nothing in me that's scared in that moment. But that's what I was thinking, like, is this what's happening when I'm walking on the trail? So I did a little bit of that. I did some research. Originally, I actually started doing research too on just what artists said were scary to them. And a lot of it just like what was frightening to them. And sorry, this is a long roundabout way of saying I was comparing works from artists from 100 years ago. Otto Dix is the one that I really focused on, but there are a lot of men doing popular artwork on them dismembering women and killing women. I think one of them, it was saying it was based on oh, please forgive me, my memory is really bad. The way finding names is hard for me to do. But what's the you know, the murderer, the British murderer, Jack the Ripper.
Oh, I'm like, which one?
So many. But yeah, like they'd pretend they were Jack the Ripper and like do paintings and drawings, and people, it was popular. It was part of the popular culture of the time. Like painting would have been the television show,
Yeah,
the radio show, the entertainment. And a lot of people really got into that, dismembering women. I just thought, it was like, what? I mean, I won't go into talking about the people's guesses about it being about World War I or the Depression in Germany or the things. I'm sure there was a lot more going on than that. I believe it was because there was a time of revolution for people back in like the 1900s, and everyone talks about the Roaring 20s, and before that there were a lot of people discussing their rights, voting rights and trans rights and queer culture and stuff. And then I think artists decided to come, which you know, I shouldn't be surprised. Artists aren't angels. Artists decided to make art about killing women, you know. So a couple of my pieces are about that. So about 100 years ago, artwork that Otto Dix was making, dismembering women's bodies, and then now with the popular cartoon with whatever 40 million viewers having rape, like you know, rape culture being hilarious.
yeah.
And then I just did some paintings that were from scenes of nature, places I got scared. Just really simple, basic, flat. I don't know if you call my artwork, I think it's pretty flat. It's not very three-dimensional, usually very monotone. And one of them is like an ink blot in a way of like, and it's a combination of imagined creatures I see in nature, kind of in ink blot form. And then lastly, so this, I don't know if you want me to keep going. Lastly, the picture that you have up there right now on the screen, I'm not sure if that's being shared, but the Bannerman Park CBC article. So for anybody who's not familiar, in July 2022 in Bannerman Park, there was a public attack of a young woman, and she was there with her mother and her niece, her young niece. I can't remember how old. She said the niece was 7 or 8 or something. And a man came, and she was inside the swimming pool. Everybody was out and about, and a man jumped on top of her and tried to rape her. And he even verbally said he was going to rape her, like in front of everybody. And people had what they call bystander effect, where I think people just got paralyzed and watched, and nobody called the police. Nobody physically came over to help during this part. But later on, the woman does explain that after, when they were fighting the guy off, people were coming up to try to help them. But in the moment, for I don't know how many minutes or for how long, and he almost did physically rape her, but her mother pushed him off, and they just had to physically kept fighting this man over and over again while they tried to call the police and try to get the phone away from her. Anyway, so when I did the Grenfell Art Gallery residency in the summer, this just happened. I just started my residency. This attack just happened. And one thing I thought was really fantastic now with social media is, first we had a media story from CBC talking about what happened. And then we had the actual survivor's account. She puts it on Facebook. She's very public. She's not ashamed. She doesn't, she shows her face. She says her name. She tried to get CBC to take down their article because their article was based on the trauma that it was for the family. The family was going through a hard time with their son, for reasons they're saying, because he's autistic, and they're having trouble getting healthcare. So CBC just focused on mental health issues and Canadian government, Newfoundland government health issues. They didn't actually even report much about the woman's assault. The way they said it was basically like he came over, he tried to assault her, nothing happened. And the police said that everything was okay, nobody was hurt. It's all okay, it's all good. And they can't imagine what the father was going through. And since CBC just reported everything through the father's lens, the father of the man who attacked the young woman. And they really brushed over her whole experience, like erased it. It didn't really happen, or it wasn't so bad. And her story is completely different. And at first she said, hey, this happened to me in Bannerman Park. And then she had to come back and say, this is exactly what happened to me. And she had to describe how violent it was. She contacted CBC, asked them to take down the article, which they won't. They didn't make any apologies, anything like that. And I actually contacted two of the journalists and other people who previously worked for CBC, and nobody really could give me any information about it. The journalists didn't get back to me, the people who wrote it. So actually I decided to include the journalist face too, because they, I felt like if they were being public about it, like, and the young surviving person who was attacked, if she's willing to put her face out there, then I think the journalists who are erasing her story should also be physically present. So one of the images, the one that we're seeing with the big CBC logo, is the visual images that CBC article used. So I've got the lawyers, a judge, the Bannerman Park sign, flags, a park, artwork that the young man has in his basement room. And then the other one is big long, it's all the text of the survivor's story, everything in her own words. And I was originally gonna like put my own input into it, and I couldn't. Artist Sean O'Hagan, actually, I was really lucky. She came in on a day I was having some stress from it. And I wanted to do some imagery of my own, making up a narrative. And then I realized that I would be doing exactly what CBC was doing. I was inserting my story. Oh, and by the way, I had consent from the survivor. I wouldn't have done it without her permission. If I didn't have her permission, I would have just scrapped the whole thing.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, I went on quite a bit. I'm not sure.
No, I mean,
yeah,
I remember hearing the story on the radio that the CBC did. And then later hearing about you doing this project and being really grateful that you were taking it up, because through my lens of hearing that story, it was very obvious that there was a lot that wasn't being said on behalf of this young woman who was attacked, and that there was like, it was a complicated story, that it was a complicated story. And I think something that I really appreciate about this project is that, well, first, of course, that you're filling it out, like it wasn't presented. It was presented in the way that stories of male violence against women are usually presented, which is somehow the man is, we can just say, oh, he has a mental illness, or his, think of the family, or, like, where's the person who was harmed in any of this? She's like erased and gone, and somehow he's the focus and in a sympathetic light somehow, or she's to blame, I mean, they didn't really do that too much to her. She was minding her own business.
Oh yeah, this is the CBC article said, I don't know. It was, I mean, I'm just sensitive maybe, but the way they were saying she was laying in her bikini.
Yeah.
People, they don't say like everyone's at the swimming pool, like where everyone's in their bikinis, like
Yeah.
men, women, everyone's in their bathing suits. I don't know why, but the way they wrote this, a certain line made me think, oh, well, she was asking for it clearly
Yeah.
because she was wearing a bikini at the park, but they don't mention
Yeah.
like this old school
Yeah.
brain of mine kicked in where I was like, oh yeah, well, what's this woman doing wearing a bikini at the park? Like just for a second. And I was like, oh
Of
wait, no,
course.
she can wear a bikini wherever the F she wants to.
Yeah.
And also, why are they included like that? You know, whatever.
Yeah. What is that to the story except as a way of undermining
Yeah.
her?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I can't remember. I was gonna say something else, but if it comes to me, I'm gonna interrupt you and say it. So I
Yeah.
can't remember right now.
Oh, well, you were talking about like that you were having you were having some kind of anxiety about it, and then Sean came in and said, "Oh,
Oh
you were
yeah.
saying," and then said, "No, no, no, let it."
Yeah. It was just really nice. I don't know, to have support. So one thing I want to say, I don't know why I feel like I have to say this, but I do. Corner Brook and Western Newfoundland artists are really, I feel really community, and probably all in Newfoundland. I'm new to the St. John scene, and I do see a community here for sure. Absolutely. Everyone's been really lovely to me, and I can see to each other. But that was the great thing about doing this project, and not only having the support of the gallery, but just having an artist like Sean just walk in, or people on social media like Nelson White and Anastasia Taylor be in touch with me just about it, just being supportive of me, because it can be, it feels to me like to be a really danger. I don't know why I want to say dangerous topic, but I think it's dangerous to assert yourself into another person's narrative, especially in an attack. So it
Yeah.
was just good that I had support from the artistic community. Kind of that helped me with my like mental health and keeping a good healthy perspective on like what am I trying to say, what's my message,
Yeah.
and how do I remove myself, like I know that I'm inserting myself in there somehow, but I just really want to do, this is a CBC's article, and then this is the real, like what I think is the, and what is the real story, it's the real story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I really appreciate your mentioning that you had permission from the
Mhm.
woman who was attacked.
Mhm.
And obviously that like is really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started doing the project for a couple of days. I was doing research, and Matthew Hills, as you know, is the curator of the Grenfell Art Gallery, and I was telling him about this project because I was going to do something else, but I felt like this was something I wanted to really delve into, and so he was supportive. And then I was like, it was day two. It was only day two, but all of a sudden I was like, shoot, I haven't even asked this person. Like here I am, just like CBC, just being like, well, I'm going to have my say, and this is my opinion, like without even asking her permission. And then, so yeah, so I had to do it. And then, so I told Matthew, like, if she doesn't say yes, then I'm scrapping. So if she doesn't get a hold of me, I'm scrapping this. Like, and of course he had my back, but I was very grateful. Thank you so much, Keisha. Thank you so much for letting me tell your story the best that I could.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Mm. Did you get any feedback from people who saw the installation, the show?
Um, oh, can I say something? Yes. So I
Yeah.
was really, people who saw the show, Michelle McKinnon, the professor at the university, when I gave my talk, there was some people that came. I think she brought a classroom in, and I did have a lot of very positive feedback from the people in her class, her students, and they heard about the story. And the thing that interested me is, oh, uh, we were talking about this off camera, that I have a friend who has a hearing aid, and that's why she can hear my dog in the background doing things that other people can't do. But anyway, so she said, I was telling her about my project. I hope you don't mind me just doing this side thing.
Yeah,
She,
yeah.
she said, no, 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 that didn't happen. CBC said that everything was okay. She said, my friend told me I was telling her a woman was attacked in Bannerman Park and I'm going to do a project on it. And she's like, oh no, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
My friend read a CBC article about it. And I was like, oh, so I actually, because she said that, I actually thought more people believe the CBC article. Because I was in Corner Brook. I wasn't in St. John's. I wasn't chatting with people about it, on the street. And the reason I actually heard about it, like not just from the news, was actually young women at the university coming up and talking to me about it, just like in the office. They're like, did you hear? So yes, it was really positive feedback from the students. I mean, nobody had anything negative to say to my face, but a lot of young students said, like, right away when I said, "Did you hear the story?" And they're like, "Yeah." And they're like, "I'm like, you saw the Facebook story, the one that Keisha put out?" And they're like, "Yeah." Like they were fully like pro her and her story. None of them actually were even paying attention, I don't think, to the CBC articles. That interested me, and maybe the generations different. Like my friend who didn't believe the story, and her friend who didn't believe the story, or summed it up like believed CBC story. They never even read, they don't even know who she is, they never read her Facebook account, etc. They're, like they're people in their 80s, in their 70s, in their 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that matters, it probably doesn't. I think it's just that maybe people who are more into social media, I guess, might be hearing different stories than people who are just reading CBC news. And that's why I think CBC's got responsibility. Obviously, they're Canada's news organization.
Yeah, the authority that they carry. Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting to me. Well, what your point, you're saying, like, there might be a generational divide in terms of who really has the authority to be believed. But nonetheless, CBC is CBC. They have enormous authority. And that is such a huge responsibility that they bear. And if they're, yeah. And it makes me think about this idea that, throughout history, women in particular have always shared information about how to stay safe, and at some point it got labeled gossip. And so that it was like, shut it down. We'll make this sort of the worst thing that you can be called, and really it's about exactly what you're saying about those young women students who are like, yes, I know about it. And, of course they were talking about it because, as we said, young women are often the most likely targets of, of violence. So yeah, I mean, all of it, like, it's so much comes up. It's really, and that you, I'm thinking about your project of monsters and kind of like in the dark, and if what gets shut down is women sharing information about how to stay safe, like that is a way of keeping people in the dark.
Yeah. If
you are diverted by an authoritative source, in your attention or in what you believe, that is like pulling down a curtain. It's so powerful. Yeah.
That makes me think of your project, the gossip where you had that residency with.
Yes. How interesting. Grenfell's. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's where my mind goes because I thought a lot about it, but I don't think you have to look too far to see things that have been historically ways of women being in the world that got shifted like 180 from like the positive to the negative, and kind of like who benefits when that happens, right?
I don't know if this is the best time to talk about it. You can edit this out. Yeah. But I currently work for Memorial University, just like doing secretarial work. And some people were bringing up I don't know if you've heard, I think it was CBC. I haven't read this yet. I got to do this weekend. CBC put out something about Diane Timmons, the president. And people at work are talking about it, and they're saying they're pretty upset because they feel like she's being attacked. Like there's been a lot of attacks on her. And so I'm curious. I actually don't know too much about Diane. I do know what's going on this week with the story. But I'm curious to read that CBC article now. I'm curious. And then if I might even start, I wasn't going to do anything on women this year. I was going to try to relax and do some work on tech, like do some work about texts and other things like that. But yeah, I'm going to read the CBC article, and then I might just have to do a little bit more investigation on journalism in Canada and Newfoundland on how they talk about women. So we'll see.
Yeah.
See what happens. I don't want to.
Forced to. Yeah. Well, just for some additional context, you're talking about the woman who is the president, right, of MUN?
Yeah, she's president of Memorial University. And what I've heard is that she's had a lot of attacks on her. And then they feel like this one in particular. And again, I've got very little knowledge. So my knowledge, and I'll say what I know, is that I think she's being attacked. She said that her father told her that he is Mi'kmaq, and she says she wasn't brought up in Indigenous culture, but it's interested her, and she's never claimed to be Indigenous. But I guess CBC, this article this week, attacking her. I think it might have to do with her accepting an award.
Right.
You know what? And I'm sorry, I shouldn't probably even talk about this because I haven't read it. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
But people at work are saying it just seems so vicious, like they're really going for it. And they put out the article on International Women's Day too. And I'm like, what? Why? Wait till tomorrow. Like,
yeah.
What's going on? And so I don't know how much I should be talking about this because I'm actually not informed. Yeah. This is just gossip.
Well,
but it did make me, I saw the people in the office, and I saw that they were upset, like on her behalf. And these aren't like her friends. These aren't people who like know her, but they're just like, what is going on? Like, why is this woman being attacked? And the person who was the president of the university before was like an old white guy that was her curmudgeon, and he never once had a CBC article about him, probably saying he stinks. If I find that article, I'll let you know. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I definitely read some of those articles. There's been actually a few.
Okay.
And you know, interesting that there's sort of like, the thing that interested me was, it's like attack on her legitimacy, but like through this way that is very difficult to criticize, because she's being taken to task for supposedly, although like you say, she actually, I don't know, it's for like supposedly claiming Indigenous roots when she doesn't have them, and trying to like benefit on the backs of something that she doesn't deserve to benefit from. And yeah, it's like, again, it's like, well, it's complex. There are real issues here, but then how much of it is colored by just, it's unbearable to have a woman be the president of MUN.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody was saying, like, I don't know what it is. Somebody was saying, like, she earns a lot of money. That might be a problem for people, right? Like a woman earning a lot of money in a position of power. What rate does she have, Robin? Why?
How are we still here? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
How are we still here? But we are. It's very clear. We are. So, yeah. So you were saying, would this sort of continue in your monster category?
I'm not sure yet. I guess I don't really have I don't know, I guess, until I know,
Yeah.
until I start doing it. I might be done with monsters, but I definitely needed a break from that for a
Yeah.
little. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So like we are talking about me doing zines recently, and my zines are
Yeah, I was just thinking,
and
let's talk
drawings of
about
dogs.
dogs. Let's talk about dogs now. So I'm going to share the screen again. Yeah,
Oh, Zoe.
here we go. There's a little antidote
Yeah.
to the.
Yes, there we go. That's for mental health.
Aw.
People's dogs, abstract work, all that stuff. Yeah. Little cleansing palette cleansers. Yeah.
Yes, we all need them. We all need them. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess, I mean, you have made these zines of people's pets.
That was this shout out to Eastern Edge and Holdfast Festival. Elijah helped organize, I think it's the first zine event. I mean, I'm probably wrong. Or first zine event in a while in St. John. So kudos to Holdfast and to Elijah. And yeah.
Called BFF. And yeah, so good. I don't even own a dog. I have a cat, but I was like, I want one. I want one.
I did a painting of my sister's cat and it looked evil. And then I recently have been drawing what's her name? Sorry, somebody else's cat. She's famous in Grenfell. The fine arts secretary. She's amazing. I started drawing her cat recently and I made her cat look evil. Her cat's not evil. So I was like, what's wrong with me? I've got a cat. So I think I have to do cats next because apparently I think they're evil. If we're talking about me capturing the essence. But I love cats. I love animals. I'm an animal person, even though they scare me. Horses scare me.
They're so big.
Scares me. Yeah, they're so big.
They're so big. Yeah, well, let me see what else is. I think you sitting at the table.
Yeah. And that's my husband, Hulk Caesar. He hosts a radio show once a week. He was on BOIR in Corner Brook. Now he does it at CHMR, and he likes to interview artists and anybody in the community who wants to just talk about their creative passions or their passions. So
Yeah.
if you go to hulkcaesar.com, you can fill out a survey and be on his radio show. He'd love to interview.
Yeah, I remember the many interviews here at Bay of Islands Radio, and also your husband helped with an audio installation that I did at Grenfell.
Oh, great. Yay. Oh, that's right. Yes, because he used to work at Grenfell.
Yeah. All right, maybe I'm going to go back. I feel like you did post a picture of a cat. So
that's Matthew's dog.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna do more of that. I want to do that for his family.
Yeah, just also so people can see the qualities of your drawings and yeah, this idea of like getting to the essence.
Can I tell you?
Sorry, if you've had this comparison to Alice Neal, have you?
I love Alice Neal. I will take that. Yeah. I love it. You know what Alice Neal does that I do not do? Well, I haven't been painting forever, like painting humans. So that's what I gotta do. But she would do it. She said like she'd do it with the sitter there. And she said she's always scared. I just have one book. I mean, I haven't read a bunch. And I saw a documentary on her that her sons are interviewed in. But so she said she was scared. Like whenever somebody sat down, it freaked her out, even though she's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I really like about Alice Neal, I think that, I mean, sorry if this is too inside, but you were, you hosted a little art group of us out in Western Newfoundland, and you had the old lady trope articles, which I really like.
Right.
I could always talk about the old lady trope for
yeah, like not dead enough.
Yeah,
that you have that for women artists. Either you're like a young, sexy thing, or you have to be like in your 80s.
Yeah.
And then you're discovered as if you haven't been like working away completely unacknowledged.
Totally.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought you've been hiding in a basement
Yeah.
for 80 years. Then you come out and someone goes, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah, like, oh my goodness, how come I've never heard of you? Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know why. It's not like there's a system set up to ensure that you
Yeah.
didn't. Oh, so this is a video of your installation.
Oh yeah. Can I talk just really quickly
Yeah.
actually about the I was quite grateful. Grenfell let me I was telling Matthew that I'd done these paintings in my third year of Emily Carr about assaults that happened in nature. And I did these watercolors, and I did the text from newspapers about people getting assaulted. And I showed Matthew because that was my first time really doing anything about, I guess, serious. I don't know if you want to say that, but he included them at the front because they still were relevant, I guess, or maybe they were in a sense my jumping off point, like, or I don't know what the right terminology is, but they were the
Yeah.
first things I ever did on assaults in nature.
So that's what these
Yeah,
are.
just right
Yeah.
there. Yeah, those
Yeah.
6 pieces. I mean, I did more than those 6 pieces, but those were still my favorites that I've kept.
Interesting. Yeah. And just, I'm glad we actually were looking at this video because it's like, oh, somehow I hadn't quite cottoned on to the fact that her Facebook post is you wrote it out in its entirety.
Yeah, and that's the funny, I can't really document it properly because it's so light. Like it's just oil pencil on paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, even just to see that it takes up an entire wall plus a little
Yeah.
more gives
Yeah.
you the sense of like,
Yeah.
oh,
Story's got, yeah, big. She's
yeah.
got a story to tell.
Yeah. Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to have another exhibit, but we'll see. I'll start applying for shows in Maritimes and Atlantic Canada, and we'll see if I can share. I just like sharing my work.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now I was looking for the cat. I know you had one cat picture. I was like, oh, look, a cat.
I wonder, it might have been the painting of my sister's from a long time ago.
Yeah, that must be it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, if people want to see your work, they can
Yeah.
come to your Instagram account. You also have a website. I'm just going to quickly click on there.
Yes, and I will update that website one day.
Yes.
Every year. This is
Famous last words.
Yeah.
I say to myself. Yeah. Yeah, what I think, even updated or not, you really can get the feel of your style, and that what we're talking about, this energetic quality of your work. And it does kind of, you use a lot of colored pencil, not exclusively, but largely. And to me, that I think about, since we're using this word energetic, just like the physicality of that versus like there's a fluidity to paint, whereas a pencil is like really, you have the tip of the pencil and then it's taking this effort to create. So I don't know if you'd be willing to talk about that maybe a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I wonder what I like about pencil crayon is I don't know if I'm particularly more lazy than other people, but one thing I like is just sitting on a couch, or I don't love an easel. I like working on a wall, but I prefer sitting, or I prefer on a table. Actually, Nelson White, who I've got a little button of Nelson here. I got to see how he does his artwork too. He likes to have it on a table. He likes to lie it flat. And I thought, for some reason, I thought it was just me. Like I thought, boy, I don't love painting on an easel. I don't love that. I like painting on a table. I like something else. Or I've seen some Japanese people, they have like a short little table and they are sitting on their cushions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And doing it. But so there's something about pencil crayon, color right away. I think color for me is I don't know why, but like for me, it's like a picker upper, like mental health joy to see color. Like it makes me quite happy. And I did that abstract work with me, finding, you know, different shapes and patterns and colors that were in a minimal way, but it was mostly the color. And that's probably why with pencil crayons, that just makes me want to, sorry, so bad at talking about this. That yeah, just brings me a joy, and art making for me is a joy. You know, slightly stressful, but a joy and a joy too. Like right now, I'm looking at a screen of you, and besides your purple and everything, the pink behind you, I'm like, oh, I love that pink, and I keep staring at that. Yeah, that just makes me happy. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's probably why, just being able to sit down, like relax in a sense, not being so formal. I feel like there's such formality when it comes to painting and other things. That yeah, that's why I like pencil crayon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that joy definitely comes through in the sort of exuberance of the lines, and yeah, yeah, definitely what I think, you know, what I relate to within that, and you know, in seeing. And yeah, I'm glad you brought up color too. Yeah, even the like the gross morn ones, which are, you know, just two colors really, but like the choice of the sort of graphite gray and then a blue.
Yeah, that was speaking to my, like it wasn't intentional, but that's kind of what I felt. And then it became intentional. Like for the gross morn one, it was a time of depression. Like it was a time of isolation and sadness and loneliness and depression and coming out of a traumatic event that I just experienced. And then all of a sudden going into, for me, the pandemic became another traumatic event.
Yeah.
Different type of trauma. But yeah, so that's why I just used muted tones or a couple of colors, just because I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling colorful. I wasn't feeling like the joy at the time.
Yeah, and even just thinking back to your well, I don't mean to like gloss over that, but yes, I feel it. And, you know,
We
when
don't,
you were saying like April 2020 is like, that was such a like wild time, wild and horrible time. Yeah. And I was just thinking about, you know, I noticed in your zine of the dogs, every once in a while, like I just really like caught my eye was like one just blue, you know, and so really just appreciating your facility with color and working with it in this emotional way. Even, you know, the Facebook post, there's something about it like being so big, taking up that entire wall plus a little more. And, you know, maybe it makes it hard to photograph, but there's something about it like not being boldly graphic.
oh yeah, like with her posts, like in comparison to CBC, I thought tried to make the article beautiful, like in a sense. Like here's a picture of Canadian flags and provincial flags that the person has in his room. And here's a beautiful, beautiful, uplifting picture of an artwork about dealing with mental health issues. And here's a picture of the park. And here's a picture, just like, what the F? For hers, there's nothing glossy, nothing fantastical. I mean, looking visually, just like, here are my words, this is my story, and this is real. Like, this is the honest truth. Whereas CBC has to present a package.
Yeah.
Even I mean, it wasn't like they were choosing the prettiest pictures, but there were like flowers in their their pictures.
Yeah, and like an artwork in his room, like what?
Yeah.
That is nuts, actually. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So hers might not be. That's what I was saying to somebody too. I didn't know like if people would want to actually look at hers or read hers in comparison with the CBC one, because the CBC one looks more like an artwork. Like it's
Yeah.
slightly more visually impactful.
Yeah. And like, I mean, you know, hearing you talk about it, I think, well, yeah, of course, and it's by design, it's deliberate, and la 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 la, and I believe all that, and I wonder if, is it also like unconscious, in the sense of we're in this society that really does preference the man's experience and give it the authority and erase, you know. Yeah.
I also thought the interesting thing, I mean, again, these are biases that I have, I'm sure. First they had a male journalist write the article, and then they switched it to a female journalist the next day. And I didn't know if that was also a choice. They had two articles. His was really brief. His was like, this is what happened. Same thing, coloring it like that everything was okay.
Mhm.
And then hers went into like a deep interview with the father. And I didn't know if that was on purpose as well, like a choice that they decided to make. And I think I even asked that on one of the reporters, like, is this a choice? Did somebody say, this guy has it, but now this woman has it? Obviously, nobody responded to me. Who am I?
Yeah. We can only make our own assumptions based
Yeah.
on based on 2,000 years of history.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so wow. Yeah, thank you for sharing all of this. Is there anything else we should talk about before we wrap up?
No, but thank you. And I'm sorry I'm not great at talking about my work, but I appreciate you
I think you're
chatting with me about it.
great at talking about your work, actually. So, yeah, I'm so appreciative and excited to see, you know, what your next thing is, and appreciate this opportunity to look at these projects that you've done in the last couple of years. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Robin. Yeah, thank you so much too.